Welcome to the deep dive. We take stacks of info, pull out the key bits, and, well, get you up to speed fast. Today, we're digging into Canada's genetic story. Now, you might think, okay, landscapes, nice people, but researchers, they're saying Canada's genetics are genuinely unique. It's not really about these super ancient fixed lineages in one place. It's more like a living mosaic. It reflects almost every human migration from the last, 500 years? I mean, just picture it, one country. Its DNA holds indigenous roots going back maybe 15,000 years or more, but then it's layered with genetic signatures from literally everywhere: Europe, Africa, Asia, the Middle East. And this mix, it's not just culture. Scientists see it as this incredible living lab. It's perfectly set up, to figure out how our genes, our environment, our migration histories, how they all interact and shape us. So yeah, our mission today, let's unpack what makes Canada's genetic makeup so different. Why are scientists so fascinated by it? And importantly, what are the big questions, sometimes tricky questions it raises about identity, ethics, and, well, belonging in such a multicultural place?
Exactly. And that diversity is a huge opportunity for science. Researchers can actually watch how genes interplay with environment, diet, lifestyle, across so many groups, and see how these patterns play out over time. So in this deep dive, we'll go from Canada's really deep ancient roots right up to the modern challenges this unique genetic picture presents.
Okay, so to really get this mosaic, we have to start deep, right? At the oldest roots, what have scientists found there?
Right. So ancient DNA work in Canada, it actually shows people were there as early as 13,000 years ago.
Right.
And there's evidence for continuous occupation in some spots. What's really interesting, take Inuit genomes. They have these specific adaptations, genetic adaptations to cold climates, things affecting fat metabolism, for instance.
Yeah.
You see similar things in other Arctic peoples, sure, but scientists found these actually developed independently in the Inuit, which is, pretty remarkable. And beyond that, some indigenous groups still carry very distinct mitochondrial DNA types. Those markers passed only down the maternal line. Things like D2A, they give us these invaluable clues about how the Americas were first populated.
Okay, so you've got these incredibly deep roots, and then, bam, European contact happens, and Canada's gene pool just gets completely reshaped. This is where the story takes a massive turn, wouldn't you say? What were those big waves of immigration that just fundamentally changed the genetic map?
Precisely. After those ancient foundations, you see dramatic shifts. First, waves of French and British settlers. Then, tragically, enslaved Africans brought through the Atlantic trade. And then later, huge waves of immigration came from places like China, India, the Philippines, the Middle East, the Caribbean, you name it. And this huge coming together has forged, well, one of the most genetically varied modern nations on Earth.
And the numbers, they really drive this home. Researchers point out, over 23% of Canadians today are immigrants. That's the highest proportion in the G7. And get this statistic, Toronto alone, people from over 200 different ethnic backgrounds. It's got to be one of the most genetically diverse cities anywhere.
And that's exactly why Canada's genetic landscape is so valuable. You have these big genome projects, like the Canadian Partnership for Tomorrow's Health. They're using this incredible diversity to understand gene-environment interactions across tons of different ethnic groups. It really is like a living laboratory for human biology.
So it's more than just mapping who's where. This rich genetic mix, it's a unique lens for some really cutting-edge science, right? Like, indigenous genetics are key for understanding things like population bottlenecks. When a population shrinks, then bounces back. And disease resistance, gene environment adaptations. For example, scientists are looking at protective gene versions alleles that might offer cold resistance, or genetic risk factors for things like type 2 diabetes, which are more common now with modern diets.
But this complex story, it also has a very difficult history attached. We have to acknowledge that. For centuries, indigenous peoples faced unethical research, medical and anthropological, often completely without their consent. And even with modern projects, there's this real tension, isn't there, between advancing science and genetic information.
Yeah, that debate's really heated up around genomic sovereignty, basically the right of communities to control how their genetic material gets used. Some indigenous groups have actually said no to research unless they get guaranteed community oversight, clear benefits back to the community, and protocols that are genuinely culturally sensitive.
And there's another layer of complexity, too, unfortunately. It ties into immigration politics. We've seen instances where, critics misuse genetic ancestry data. They twist it to try and fuel anti-immigrant feelings or question who belongs, who has a national identity. It's a pretty clear example of science being bent for ideology.
Yeah.
And that's a serious concern.
That misuse of data, it really highlights why the ethics around this research are just so critical. It's a heavy discussion. Maybe we can just for a second put Canada's diversity in a global context. How does it stack up?
It's pretty striking when you do. Researchers suggest that if you look at genetic diversity per person, Canada is right up there with places like the US and Brazil. But Canada only has around 40 million people. And what's really wild is that the genetic diversity within just one Canadian city might be greater than some entire countries. It just
Yeah.
underlines this extraordinary mosaic we've been talking about.
So wrapping this up, where does this leave us? Let's bring it back to the core idea.
Mhm.
Canada's genetic story, it's this incredibly rich tapestry woven from thousands of years of Indigenous presence and then centuries of global immigration. And scientists are finding it's not just about origins, where people came from, it's profoundly about how they live together now.
Right. And this amazing genetic landscape, it forces us to think beyond just the science. It really pushes some big questions on us, doesn't it? Like, who actually owns genetic data in a society like Canada's? How can research benefit both Indigenous populations and those descended from immigrants? Fairly, equitably. Should we see genetic heritage as this unifying national thing, something that binds everyone? Or should we respect it as separate cultural legacies, just existing within the same borders? And maybe the biggest one, should this incredible diversity be shared freely for global science, which could benefit everyone? Or does it need careful protection, guarding the rights of the people whose DNA tells this deep, often difficult story?
Those are really powerful questions. They definitely challenge us to think way beyond just the biology of it all. So we invite you, the listener, to think about this. The Canada gene, maybe it's not just biology at all. It's really a deep dive into identity, into ethics, and into what belonging even means in our connected world today. Hopefully it leaves you with a bit of wonder and maybe a desire to explore these questions yourself.